the community. It grew out of the community, and it was supported by the grassroots of the community. There was the opportunity commercially to do it because the Advocate had left town, and how very silly the Northern Star people were, as they were in those days, the Northern Star Holdings, to just they said with their utter arrogance that the big companies have so often, they said, you watch, it won't last 6 months. After 6 months, instead of saying, hey, hang on a sec, they said, you watch, it won't last a year. At the end of a year, they said, you watch, it's going to fold. And it took them 2 years to actually finally call a meeting in Mullumbimby and say, why have we lost all our advertising? And it was too late. It was too late. They could have wiped me out in the first 6 months. They could have wiped us out in the first year. But they left it too late then. And as history shows, of course, I'm afraid to say, it was the Advocate that, in the end, went. Yes, it went. I don't feel proud of that. I felt very sad when it went. But on the other hand, of course, it was a victory for the Echo, and as I see it, you know, for the community, for the grassroots community that had supported an alternative newspaper, and the businesses of this town and this shire that have supported an alternative newspaper. And I hand it to the businesses of this town. And because the businesses of this town have been so used to, you know, the hippies of the early 70s, and they have that history going back from, you know, 86 when we started the newspaper, back 15 years to 1970, 71 when we first people started coming up here. They had that history. And so they were able to go with an alternative and a different newspaper, the big businesses, Mallam's and others, because they realised that that's where it was at, and that's where a lot of the business was, and this was a step forward, and a lot of their business came from these sort of people. So they were able to do it. So we were able to do it in this town, in Mullumbimby, probably where we'd never been able to do it in any other town in Australia. It's an interesting thought, but they had that ability. They had 15 years of experience of the alternative society, and so they were able to go with it. And an alternative newspaper was able to not only be born, because a number had been born over the years, but was able to thrive in the end. In the end, my God, there were a few years there it was touch and go, I can tell you. But so that's it. That's it really. It was the end of the beginning of a new age, a new life for me anyway, as a newspaper man.
Talk about how touch and go it was. Give some colourful stories about it.
Oh, it was very touch and go. I mean, I borrowed $5,000, and of course the first thing I worked and worked and worked, and Dorothy Mullins helped me a lot over that, and I took her on that $5,000. I think I paid her about $1,800 of it or something. I took her on for 6 weeks at sort of $300 a week or whatever it was. Whatever the going rate was in those days, and said, okay, I'm taking you on for 6 weeks to teach me how to put a newspaper together from the advertising point of view, from how to sell advertising and everything else. And we worked out a centimetre rate and everything else. So obviously after 2 months I realised that we were never going to make any money. We were going backwards. The 5,000 was down to 1,000, and we were, you know, we're getting something in, but not enough. And I had to put the price up, you know, and so I did it with terror in my heart, thinking, well, this is it, you know, they'll all refuse to pay it. Nobody batted an eyelid. Nobody batted an eyelid. We put the price up by about 25% because we were charging practically nothing. And but I still had to go and borrow some money. And of course, the other thing I ran into, which any businessman knows so well today, of course, was credit. I mean, I had all these people owing me money. And here I had to go on producing newspapers whilst they all took their time about paying me. Besides which, I hadn't sort of thought about actually sending them bills, or sitting up till midnight every night typing out bills after sort of doing an 80-hour week, you know, on producing a newspaper. So it was all pretty chaotic, and the bills didn't go out, and so I didn't get paid, and so I ran out of money, and I had to go and borrow some more, and I had to hock my share. The only asset I had was my share in my multiple occupancy at the property at Cooper's Lane. So I hocked that to the ANZ Bank, and so they gave me another sort of 6 or 7 grand. I think I was probably one of the first people to actually get some serious dollars lent to him for a commercial project on the back of a multiple occupancy share. What we had in this newspaper was always contributions from the community. We had heaps of letters, apart from the first edition, where we had to write all the letters ourselves or get our friends to. You'll see, I wrote 3 of the letters. I think David wrote 2 of them. His son wrote 1. Anyway, but we always had heaps of contributions. We always had these terrific contributions coming in from the community, and that's been true right the way through the history of the Echo. When we also ran a newspaper in Lismore years later, and that never happened in Lismore. Never got any support from the community. They just sat out there in their hands waiting for us to do it all. So, yeah, community newspaper didn't happen on that level over there. And that's, again, what's so truly remarkable about this shire. It is quite extraordinary. There was the question of expressing opinions in this newspaper that were going to upset our advertisers. And we had obviously some pretty, how shall I put it, you know, right of centre advertisers, some pretty traditional people out there who were advertising with us, but didn't exactly want to hear that we were, you know, in favour of marijuana legalisation or anything like that, but my main driving force has been social issues, the social issues, the caring. To me, there is only one basis of caring in life, and that is the person at the bottom of the heap. You have to care for the person at the bottom of the heap. If we as a society look after the person at the bottom of the heap and pull that person out and bring them up a bit, then we're fulfilling the basic role and the basic sort of humanitarian need. I wish we could do that on a global scale. I really do. And that's where I'd like to go next if I can. But anyway, inevitably the time came when, you know, I'd write something in the paper that my advertisers didn't like. But in those early days, and I used to go around and get all the advertising myself, as well as write the entire newspaper. And David's job was to design all the ads and do the typesetting and actually then put the thing together. But I wrote it all and I sold it all. And I had to run the administrative side of the business as well.